South Africa needs a practical, sustainable and functional public-private partnership to overcome chaos at Transnet Freight Rail. That is according to the South African Association of Freight Forwarders. The organization's chairperson, Dr Juanita Maree, says the startling acceleration of disruptive events brought on by criminality, broken equipment and poor infrastructure in recent months has been nothing short of a disaster. Dr Maree joins us now to discuss this matter further. Dr Maree, thank you so much for your time this morning. A very good morning to you. Let's talk a little bit about this, because I think it was in his 2022 in 2022, almost a promise was made by President Cyril Ramaphosa for perhaps a stronger private-public partnership to really transform the rail and freight industry, right? But to date, from what we understand, the private sector has not seen reform to provide especially third-party access to private operators in our national rail network. Where do you think the holdup actually is between the time of promises and the time of actually realizing for the purpose of transforming our rail infrastructure?
Morning, Faith. Maybe if I can give you a bit of background, then your viewers will understand. I mean, if we take practically and you design a house, you decide there's a family of two, you've got a door, you've got two windows. So there's a design capacity in our logistics network, and that requires for the rail network, the road, the ocean freight, the air freight, the conveyor and the pipeline to work and to play its rightful role. We're currently at a situation where we're busy closing the windows, and then we drill holes through the roof and we think we will get oxygen through the roof. So we need to go back to say that what is the design capacity of a logistics network? And just to give you an example, the design capacity according to us in the logistics network is to move 10,000 containers a day between our 9 ports, and it goes up to Gauteng. Currently, we only move about 7,000 containers. So that impact, why is there a difference between the 10,000 and let's say the 7,000 containers a day? It's because of equipment breakdown, congestion, weather patterns, cable theft, and then skills that we don't have the right technical skills. So that's why a lot of people call for a disaster, and maybe a disaster bigger than the energy crisis, because we all know if we can't move the cargo in and out of our ports, and let's say back to my example on the design of a house, we close a door or we close a window, then we cannot grow, and we cannot actually, as the president was calling us, we need to reduce the poverty and the inequality. But if you don't have a logistics network that can support trade growth, well, we might as well be honest and open to each other and say that we're actually living a dream that cannot come into reality.
Yeah. What are we facing here from an element of capacity? Because as you're saying, in order for us to design a house and design it with the logistical considerations that you've just mentioned, you need people that are skilled. You need people that are able to do the work. Heck, you need political will to allow that house is actually efficient and effectively working. But it seems as though South Africa I don't think we've got people who do not know what they're doing. I question if we've got people who want to do what they know what to do.
I think you're right. We come to a crisis now because we do have the people, but it seems that they don't want to do what they're supposed to do. And we can see that all over. And I think we're busy playing with a logistics network that's very fragile, and it's got a shared responsibility and a shared infrastructure. And it's not like the energy crisis. Energy crisis, you can put an inverter in, solar panel, and there you go. But we were seeing now with the strike in Transnet, the 11 days, it took us 110 days to recover. And that ultimately rolled out in cost and time and the trust in the supply chain. And I think what people also tend to forget is that it's not us in South Africa. We portray SA Inc. And SA Inc. is nothing else than a supply chain. So if there's no reliability on a supply chain, then all the promises with industrialization and exports and we become a country of choice is not reality. And for us, it's sad is that I don't think the policymakers and maybe the decision makers understand the holistic picture that's currently unfolding. And as you see now, when I explained the house, is that the rail infrastructure is not working. So all the cargo moves now to the road infrastructure, and you can do yourself a favor. Travel to Richards Bay and Durban, and what do you see? You see trucks and trucks and trucks. So there's going to come a point where the road infrastructure cannot contain that volume anymore. That's why you need all the 8 modalities to work in a balance with each other. And that's why the design, together with the balance, gives us a environment in which we can work. And I think currently we don't have an enabling environment in the logistics network.
Sure. I want to also refer back to what the president also said regarding Transnet as well as private-public partnerships, saying that they've developed private partnerships in the private sector to address cable theft and vandalism on the freight rail network through advanced technologies and additional security personnel, saying that the partnerships were already showing results in reduced disruptions to rail operations. But on the ground, is that even so?
It's not all cable theft. I know that it's been portrayed in the media that it's cable theft, but it's not. We had last week an incident where there was a 20 million train and the train driver didn't have cell connection, so he didn't send through the signal. So that's nothing to do with cable theft. It's to do with management, with the cohesiveness, the operation. So yes, we try to say that it's cable theft, but it's a combination of many factors. And unless we're talking one version of the truth, we cannot go to the hardcore issues to fix them. And I think we're currently at that point where we need to call the things as they are and fix them. Otherwise, we impact on all of us. And that's what it's coming now to the bottom line. The supply chain, because we have an open economy, impact now back onto the citizens that live in the country. And that's why we've got such a shared responsibility to say no more. We need to fix the things with urgency.
Yeah, but is government listening at this point?
I think they do. I don't know if they really understand the full extent, but I think there is people in government that do listen and want to fix it. But maybe it's red tape, and maybe it's a combination of people think we're not in a crisis yet, and people think maybe the supply chain is much more resilient than they want to show, because they showed it in COVID-19, the floods, and but I think we're coming at a tipping point, because the tipping point really, as I said, if you travel down to Durban and the N2 corridor on the Richards Bay, it's actually atrocious. I don't need to say more.
Dr. Juanita, and you know, the reason why I ask is government listening, because if we have to have almost a comparative analysis to what we're facing right now with Eskom and having this national state of disaster declared on energy supply, that came after warning and warning and warning from different stakeholders and interested groups, including former engineers who said, guys, take a look at your capacity. You do not have the capacity to be able to speak to the demands of over 50 million citizens, obviously given the historical context of the country. Here you guys are saying, as SAAF, saying that we need to be able to fix our rail infrastructure. We need to be able to fix our rail systems and network. Otherwise, we're at the tipping point. But you cannot talk and not be heard, because the same issue that we're facing with Eskom, we're going to face with Transnet, we're going to face with our rail system.
You are right, but from nature, we don't want to be too negative, but you are right. So we're at a point to say that the public monopoly, as we have done it in Transnet, doesn't serve well anymore, and we need to unbundle it, and we need to get private sector to participate in its rightful place. But we also don't want to take from a public monopoly to a private monopoly. That's not going to help us, because the logistics network in its design is a shared infrastructure. And we are very vocal about it, because it seems that the government wants to go now from a public monopoly to a private monopoly, and that we said cannot work either. We need to talk, we need to make sure that we're on the same side, and that we work for SA Inc. But also we come to a point now to say that we cannot talk anymore. We need to do now practical implementation, test it, see what lessons we can learn, and then we go forward. But hopefully, I think under Operation Vulindlela, the president opened the reform structure. So that's all what we can do, Faith. We can work hard, put our shoulder to the wheel, and say that we're not going to talk anymore. We want to make sure that we drive action.